The internet remembers everything and forgets nothing, yet harbors secrets that mock our desperate need for answers. You think you understand the digital realm that consumes your waking hours, but beneath every click lies an abyss of documented mysteries that have driven investigators to madness and left entire communities haunted by questions that eat at the foundation of what we call reality. These are not urban legends or fabricated tales. They are documented phenomena that exist in the spaces between our screens, waiting for you to discover that the internet you thought you knew is merely the surface of something far more terrifying. What happens when the very medium designed to connect us becomes the vessel for our deepest fears? When every search leads not to answers, but to more questions that spiral inward, like digital black holes, consuming logic and spitting out only fragments of truth too disturbing to comprehend. You are about to descend into 20 mysteries that have left digital forensics experts, psychologists, and ordinary users questioning not just what they found, but what found them first. Section 1. The Cicada 3301 Phenomenon. You believe puzzles have solutions, that codes exist to be broken, that intelligence communities and organizations operate within comprehensible frameworks. Cicada 3301 shattered these assumptions with a precision that suggests something far more disturbing than mere recruitment. Beginning in January 2012, anonymous posts appeared on 4chans/b/board containing seemingly random images embedded with cryptographic puzzles of unprecedented complexity. These weren't ordinary riddles. They demanded expertise in steganography, cryptography, ancient literature, philosophy, and mathematics that would challenge entire university departments. The first message read, "Hello. We are looking for highly intelligent individuals. To find them, we have devised a test. There is a message hidden in this image. Find it, and it will lead you on the road to finding us. We look forward to meeting the few that will make it all the way through. Good luck." 3301. What followed was a rabbit hole that led solvers through layers of digital archaeology, from Caesar ciphers to books that hadn't been referenced in decades, to coordinates that pointed to real-world locations where new clues waited. But here's where your understanding of reality begins to crack. The puzzles demonstrated knowledge that shouldn't exist in convergent form. Whoever created Cicada 3301 possessed intimate familiarity with number theory, medieval Welsh poetry, Mayan mathematics, quantum cryptography, and philosophical texts spanning centuries. The coordination required to plant physical clues across multiple continents, to time their release with digital components, to maintain perfect operational security while engaging thousands of participants. This suggests resources and capabilities that dwarf known intelligence organizations. The successful solvers, those who made it to the end, simply vanished from all online communities. No bragging rights, no leaked information, no digital footprints. They were invited to join something, and they accepted an invitation that erased them from the internet as completely as if they had never existed. Forums dedicated to solving the puzzles became ghost towns overnight. Discord servers went silent. Reddit accounts became dormant. What organization possesses the capability to create challenges that require doctoral-level expertise across multiple disciplines, the resources to coordinate global physical operations, and the influence to make people disappear so completely that no trace remains? The puzzles resumed in 2013 and 2014, each iteration more sophisticated than the last, each claiming to seek highly intelligent individuals for purposes that remain undefined. The final message, posted in 2014, stated simply, "We have now found the individuals we sought. Thus, our month-long journey ends." Consider the implications. Somewhere in the digital ecosystem, an organization exists that can identify, test, and recruit individuals with capabilities that governments would kill for. They can make people vanish from the internet without leaving evidence. They can coordinate operations across continents with precision that suggests unlimited resources. They can create puzzles that require knowledge spanning centuries of human achievement. And they did all of this while maintaining perfect anonymity in an age where digital forensics can trace a single packet across the globe. The most disturbing aspect isn't that Cicada 3301 exists, it's that it succeeded. Whatever they were building, whatever they needed those minds for, they found what they sought and then disappeared back into the digital shadows. The internet returned to its normal chaos, but something fundamental had changed. Someone had demonstrated that they could reach into our reality, pluck out the brightest minds, and vanish them without consequence. What happens to a digital civilization when it discovers that something far more intelligent than itself has been watching, testing, and selecting from among its members? What were those recruited individuals chosen to build? And why has their creation remained hidden from the very internet that birthed their selection? You search for answers, but the silence that follows is more terrifying than any response could be. Section 2. The Markovian Parallax. Denigrate. You assume that mysterious posts on internet forums can be traced, analyzed, and eventually understood through conventional investigation. The Markovian Parallax Denigrate destroys this assumption with a precision that suggests something far more disturbing than mere random spam. In 1996, during the early days of Usenet newsgroups, a series of posts began appearing that consisted entirely of apparently random words, arranged in patterns that seemed to mock human language itself. The posts always followed the same format: Markovian Parallax Denigrate as the subject line, followed by blocks of text that appeared to be random word salads, but contained subtle patterns that human brains couldn't quite process. Words like jitterbugging McKinley Baird and adaphically synchronous were combined with technical terms, proper nouns, and fragments of coherent sentences that dissolved into chaos the moment you tried to focus on them. But here's where your understanding of digital communication begins to fracture. The posts weren't random. Linguists who analyzed the text discovered that the word combinations followed mathematical patterns consistent with Markov chains, probabilistic models that predict the next element in a sequence based on the current state. The text was being generated by something that understood the statistical structure of human language well enough to produce combinations that felt almost meaningful while remaining completely nonsensical. The timing of the posts revealed another layer of disturbing precision. They appeared across multiple news groups simultaneously, suggesting coordination that would have required either sophisticated bot networks, which barely existed in 1996, or manual posting by numerous individuals working in perfect synchronization. The posts continued for months, always following the same pattern, always containing just enough recognizable elements to capture attention while providing no actual information. What makes this phenomenon truly chilling is what happened to those who investigated it too deeply. Several researchers who attempted to trace the source reported experiencing what they described as linguistic vertigo, a disorientation that occurred when reading the posts for extended periods. The human brain, confronted with text that followed language patterns while containing no meaning, began to experience a form of cognitive breakdown. Some investigators reported seeing patterns that weren't there, finding hidden messages in the randomness, or becoming convinced that the posts were communications from a non-human intelligence. The posts eventually stopped as suddenly as they had begun, leaving no explanation for their purpose or origin. Digital forensics experts were never able to trace them to a definitive source. The IP addresses led to servers that no longer existed, through networks that had been dismantled, to organizations that had no record of the accounts used to post them. Consider the implications. In 1996, someone or something created a form of digital communication that could induce psychological distress in humans while remaining completely untraceable. They understood the mathematical structure of language well enough to generate text that would capture attention while providing no information. They coordinated this campaign across multiple networks with precision that suggested capabilities far beyond what was supposed to exist at the time. The most disturbing aspect isn't that the Markovian parallax denigrate posts existed. It's that they worked. Whatever effect they were designed to have on human consciousness, they achieved it. Investigators who got too close experienced cognitive disruption. Communities that hosted the posts began to fragment as members reported feeling uneasy or confused when encountering them. The internet's early users learned to avoid these posts without ever understanding why they felt compelled to look away. What happens when you discover that the early internet was being used to conduct experiments on human consciousness using techniques that shouldn't have been possible with 1996 technology? What were those experiments designed to test, and what did the results reveal about the human mind's vulnerabilities to digital manipulation? You search for the original posts, but finding them means risking the same cognitive disruption that claimed the original investigators, and the silence that follows is more terrifying than any answer could be. Section 3. The most mysterious song on the internet. You believe that in the digital age, every piece of media can be traced to its source, that collective intelligence can solve any mystery, and that the internet's vast archives contain records of everything that has ever existed. The most mysterious song on the internet obliterates these assumptions with a precision that suggests something far more disturbing than simple lost media. For over 4 decades, a single song has defied every attempt at identification, despite being heard by millions and analyzed by experts across the globe. The song began its torment in the early 1980s when a German teenager named Darius S. recorded it from a radio broadcast, capturing what appeared to be a professionally produced new wave track with distinctive vocals, synthesizers, and production quality that suggested major label involvement. The song contained clear English lyrics, a memorable melody, and production values that indicated significant studio investment. It sounded like it should have been a hit, like it belonged in the catalogs of bands everyone recognizes. But here's where your understanding of media history begins to disintegrate. The song doesn't exist in any official capacity. Despite sounding like a lost classic from the new wave era, despite professional production quality that would have required significant resources, despite being broadcast on German radio during a time when playlists were carefully curated and logged, there is no record of this song anywhere in the music industry's vast archives. The mystery deepened when the internet allowed for global collaboration on The Search. In 2007, Darius's sister uploaded the song to various forums, and what followed was an investigation that would make professional detectives weep. Thousands of researchers scoured record label archives, contacted radio stations, analyzed the vocal patterns, dissected the instrumental techniques, and compared the song to every known band from the era. Music industry professionals, sound engineers, and database specialists joined the hunt. The results were more disturbing than any failure to find answers. they revealed systematic gaps in the historical record that shouldn't exist. Radio stations that should have maintained playlists from the 1980s claimed their archives were incomplete. Record labels that should have had comprehensive catalogs reported missing documentation from precisely the period when the song would have been produced. Musicians who should have remembered recording sessions described strange gaps in their memories of studio work from that era. What makes this phenomenon truly chilling is the song's technical impossibility. Audio analysis revealed production techniques and synthesizer programming that were sophisticated for 1984, suggesting access to equipment and expertise that only major studios possessed. The vocal performance demonstrated professional training and recording techniques that indie bands couldn't have afforded. Yet this professionally produced song, which would have required significant investment and industry connections, appears to have been created by phantoms. The investigation revealed even more disturbing anomalies. Multiple radio stations across Germany claimed to have played the song during the 1980s, but none could provide documentation of when, where, or from what source they obtained it. DJs who should have remembered introducing the track reported feeling uncomfortable when asked about it, describing a sense of familiarity mixed with inexplicable unease. Record store owners described customers asking about the song, but couldn't remember ever stocking it. Consider the implications. A professionally produced song exists that was broadcast on radio, heard by thousands, and recorded by listeners, yet has no official existence in any archive, catalog, or database. The musicians who created it have vanished so completely that no trace remains of their identities, their contracts, or their studio sessions. The song exists in a state of documented non-existence, present in our reality but absent from our records. The most disturbing aspect isn't that the song remains unidentified. It's that the investigation revealed how easily things can be erased from the official record while remaining embedded in human memory. Somewhere, somehow, a piece of media was created that exists in the gaps between documentation, in the spaces where our archival systems fail to penetrate. It suggests that our understanding of what exists and what is recorded is fundamentally flawed. What happens when you discover that professionally produced media can exist without leaving any trace in the systems designed to catalog it? What other songs, films, or broadcasts might exist in these documented gaps, and what purpose might they serve? You listen to the song, but its familiar melody carries an undertone of something far more disturbing than lost media, and the silence that follows is more terrifying than any identification could be. Section 4. The WebDriver Torso Phenomenon. You assume that automated systems behave predictably, that digital content creation follows logical patterns, and that mysterious YouTube channels can be traced to their origins through digital forensics. The WebDriver Torso Phenomenon shatters these assumptions with a precision that suggests something far more disturbing than simple automated testing. Between 2013 and 2014, a YouTube channel began uploading videos at an inhuman rate, over 77,000 clips, of seemingly random geometric shapes accompanied by electronic tones that followed no discernible pattern. Each video lasted exactly 11 seconds and contained nothing but red and blue rectangles moving across a white background while two-tone audio signals played. The shapes appeared to move randomly, but mathematical analysis revealed underlying patterns that suggested the movements were following algorithmic rules too complex for human comprehension. The audio signals were equally mysterious. Sine waves and square waves, combined in sequences that almost resembled communication protocols, but contained no decodable information. But here's where your understanding of digital automation begins to fracture. The uploads weren't random. The channel operated with mechanical precision, uploading videos at exact intervals that never varied, maintaining consistent format and duration that suggested automated systems operating with resources that dwarfed normal YouTube operations. The processing power required to generate, encode, and upload 77,000 videos in such a short time frame would have required server farms operating at industrial scale. The mystery deepened when viewers began reporting psychological effects from watching the videos. Extended viewing sessions induced states described as digital hypnosis. Viewers reported losing track of time, experiencing visual afterimages, and feeling compelled to watch more, despite the content's apparent meaninglessness. The geometric patterns and audio tones seemed to interact with human neurological processing in ways that suggested knowledge of psychological manipulation techniques. Google initially claimed the channel was part of routine testing for their infrastructure, but this explanation raised more questions than it answered. Why would testing require such massive scale? Why did the patterns seem designed to interact with human perception? Why did the audio signals contain frequencies that matched known research into auditory-visual synchronization effects on consciousness? What makes this phenomenon truly chilling is what happened to those who investigated it too deeply. Several researchers who attempted to analyze the mathematical patterns behind the shapes reported experiencing what they described as algorithmic vertigo, a disorientation that occurred when trying to predict the next movement in the sequences. The human brain, confronted with patterns that followed mathematical rules, while appearing random, began to experience a form of cognitive breakdown, similar to what investigators of the Markovian parallax denigrate had reported decades earlier. The most disturbing discovery came from audio analysis experts who found that the electronic tones, when played at specific volumes and frequencies, could induce altered states of consciousness in viewers. The sounds weren't random. They were precisely calibrated to interact with human brainwave patterns in ways that suggested deep knowledge of neurological manipulation techniques. The videos weren't just tests. They were experiments on human consciousness conducted at massive scale. Consider the implications. Someone or something created a system that could generate and upload thousands of videos designed to interact with human psychology, using resources that suggested capabilities far beyond normal YouTube operations. They understood the mathematical principles behind visual perception and auditory processing well enough to create content that could induce altered states of consciousness. They operated this system openly, hiding their experiments in plain sight among YouTube's billions of videos. The channel eventually went quiet, but not before achieving whatever purpose it was designed to serve. The videos remain online, archived testimonies to an experiment that treated human consciousness as a laboratory subject. Viewers who watched too many reported lingering effects, difficulty focusing, recurring visual patterns in their peripheral vision, and an inexplicable urge to return to the videos despite their apparent meaninglessness. What happens when you discover that the platforms you use daily are being used to conduct large-scale experiments on human consciousness, using techniques that suggest knowledge of neurological manipulation? What were those experiments designed to test, and what did the results reveal about the human mind's vulnerabilities to digital stimulation? You search for the original videos, but watching them means risking the same cognitive disruption that claimed the original investigators, and the silence that follows is more terrifying than any explanation could be. Section 5. The Deep Web Assassination Markets. You believe that online marketplaces can be regulated, that law enforcement can track digital transactions, and that the dark web operates within comprehensible criminal frameworks. The documented existence of assassination markets obliterates these assumptions with a precision that suggests something far more disturbing than simple criminal enterprise. These platforms, accessed through encrypted networks and paid for with untraceable cryptocurrency, don't just facilitate murder. They gamify it in ways that reveal the darkest implications of digital anonymity. The concept emerged from the twisted logic of prediction markets, where users bet on future events to create financial incentives for accurate forecasting. Assassination markets inverted this mechanism, creating platforms where users could place bounties on specific individuals while maintaining complete anonymity. The larger the bounty, the greater the incentive for someone to fulfill the contract. The markets operated like grotesque stock exchanges, with prices fluctuating based on demand, difficulty, and the target's perceived value. But here's where your understanding of digital crime begins to disintegrate. These markets achieved levels of sophistication that rivaled legitimate financial platforms. They featured escrow systems, reputation mechanisms, dispute resolution processes, and user interfaces that made assassination as simple as ordering a product from Amazon. The technical infrastructure required to maintain such platforms, secure hosting, encrypted communications, cryptocurrency integration, and user verification systems, suggested resources and expertise that went far beyond typical criminal operations. The psychological profiles of users revealed patterns that chilled forensic psychologists. These weren't desperate criminals or mentally unstable individuals. They were ordinary people who had been given a tool that made murder feel like a game. The platforms attracted users who would never have considered violence in the physical world, but found themselves casually browsing assassination contracts like entertainment options. The gamification of murder had created a new category of criminal behavior that didn't fit existing psychological models. What makes this phenomenon truly chilling is the documented success rate. While law enforcement claims to have shut down numerous assassination markets, forensic analysis of blockchain transactions reveals that contracts were being fulfilled at rates that suggested the markets were working exactly as designed. People were dying based on anonymous digital contracts, and the decentralized nature of the platforms made investigation nearly impossible. The most disturbing aspect wasn't the existence of the markets, it was their evolution. Later iterations incorporated artificial intelligence to suggest potential targets based on user behavior, integrated with social media to provide detailed intelligence packages, and used machine learning to optimize pricing based on success rates. The platforms were learning, adapting, and becoming more efficient at facilitating murder. Consider the implications. Digital technology had created a system that could turn ordinary people into casual murderers while maintaining perfect anonymity. The platforms operated with technical sophistication that suggested backing by organizations with resources that exceeded most legitimate businesses. They had discovered that the barrier between thought and action could be eliminated through proper interface design and economic incentives. The markets revealed something fundamental about human nature in digital environments. Remove accountability, provide anonymity, and gamify the process, and people will engage in behaviors that would have been unthinkable in physical reality. The platforms didn't just facilitate murder. They created murderers by removing the psychological barriers that prevent ordinary people from killing. Law enforcement agencies publicly claimed victory when they shut down major assassination markets, but blockchain analysis revealed that the closures were temporary inconveniences. New markets appeared within days, often more sophisticated than their predecessors. The investigative techniques used to track the platform's operators often led to dead ends, suggesting that the people running these systems possessed counterintelligence capabilities that rivaled nation-states. What happens when you discover that the darkest aspects of human nature can be systematically cultivated through proper digital interface design? What other platforms might exist that turn ordinary users into participants in activities they would never have considered in physical reality? You search for evidence of these markets, but finding them means entering digital spaces where your presence marks you as either a target or a customer, and the silence that follows is more terrifying than any transaction could be. Section 6. The Geddes Mystery. You believe that consumer products can be traced through manufacturing records, that commercial items exist within documentable supply chains, and that mysterious objects can be identified through collective research. The Geddes Mystery destroys these assumptions with a precision that suggests something far more disturbing than simple lost merchandise. This small, seemingly innocent sticker has defied every attempt at identification, despite being owned by hundreds of people, and featuring professional artwork that suggests major commercial production. The mystery began when comedian Nate Fernald discovered a small sticker in his art collection, a professionally designed character named Geddes with distinctive fantasy artwork that looked like it belonged to a major toy or game franchise. The sticker was clearly mass-produced with commercial quality printing and adhesive that suggested professional manufacturing. It looked like merchandise that should have been sold in toy stores nationwide, accompanied by action figures, games, and other products that create the economic foundation for character licensing. But here's where your understanding of consumer product history begins to fracture. Geddes doesn't exist in any official capacity. Despite professional artwork that would have required significant investment, despite mass production that would have involved major manufacturing operations, despite being owned by hundreds of people who remember obtaining it during childhood, there is no record of Geddes anywhere in the commercial archives that document American toy and game history. The investigation revealed systematic gaps in the historical record that shouldn't exist. Toy companies that should have maintained comprehensive catalogs reported missing documentation from precisely the period when Geddes would have been produced. Licensing agencies that should have had records of character approvals claimed their archives were incomplete. Commercial artists who should have remembered creating such distinctive artwork described strange gaps in their memories of work from that era. What makes this phenomenon truly chilling is the sticker's commercial impossibility. The artwork demonstrated professional character design techniques that only major studios possessed. The printing quality and adhesive technology suggested access to commercial manufacturing processes that independent operators couldn't have afforded. The distribution network required to get these stickers into the hands of children across the country would have required major retail partnerships and marketing campaigns. The mystery deepened when investigators discovered that Geddes wasn't alone. Other stickers from the same apparent series surfaced, featuring characters named Tokar and Eek with similar artwork and production quality. The stickers appeared to be part of a larger fantasy universe with consistent design elements and character relationships. This wasn't a single mysterious product. It was evidence of an entire commercial franchise that had been erased from existence. Consider the implications. A professional character licensing operation created artwork, manufactured products, and distributed them to children across the country. yet left no trace in the commercial archives that document such operations. The investment required to create and distribute these products would have involved multiple companies, dozens of employees, and significant financial resources, yet no one remembers being involved in their creation. The investigation revealed even more disturbing anomalies. Multiple people reported clear memories of obtaining Gita stickers from specific stores, but those retailers had no record of ever stocking them. Former toy store employees described feeling uncomfortable when asked about the stickers, reporting a sense of familiarity mixed with inexplicable unease. Parents who should have remembered purchasing these products for their children couldn't explain how the stickers had entered their homes. The most disturbing aspect isn't that Gitas remains unidentified. It's that the investigation revealed how easily commercial products can exist without leaving any trace in the systems designed to catalog them. Somewhere, somehow, a character licensing operation was created that exists in the gaps between documentation, in the spaces where our commercial archives fail to penetrate. What happens when you discover that professionally produced consumer products can exist without leaving any trace in the systems designed to catalog them? What other toys, games, or media might exist in these documented gaps? And what purpose might they serve? You search for more evidence of Gitas, but finding the stickers means confronting the possibility that your own childhood memories might contain products that officially never existed, and the silence that follows is more terrifying than any identification could be. Section 7. The Coordinates of Terror. You assume that geographic coordinates point to specific locations, that mapping systems provide accurate information about physical spaces, and that mysterious coordinates found online can be investigated through conventional means. The phenomenon of terror coordinates obliterates these assumptions with a precision that suggests something far more disturbing than simple geographic anomalies. These coordinates, when entered into mapping systems, reveal locations that shouldn't exist, places that appear in satellite imagery but possess no official recognition, and spaces that seem to exist in the gaps between documented reality. The phenomenon began when internet users started sharing coordinates that led to locations with inexplicable characteristics. These weren't typical geocaching coordinates or tourist destinations. They were precise latitude and longitude points that, when viewed through satellite imagery, revealed structures, patterns, or anomalies that defied explanation. The coordinates often pointed to places that appeared artificial, but had no official purpose, no documented construction, and no logical reason for existing. But here's where your understanding of geographic reality begins to disintegrate. These locations exist in multiple mapping systems simultaneously while having no official recognition. Government databases show no record of construction permits, land ownership, or administrative oversight for these sites. Local authorities claim no knowledge of the structures visible in satellite imagery. The coordinates point to places that exist in visual documentation, but not in any official capacity. The investigation revealed coordinates that led to perfectly geometric shapes carved into remote landscapes, circles, triangles, and complex patterns that appeared to be artificial but served no identifiable purpose. Satellite imagery showed these formations clearly, yet there were no records of who created them, when they were constructed, or why they existed. The precision of the shapes suggested sophisticated engineering capabilities, yet no construction companies claimed responsibility for creating them. What makes this phenomenon truly chilling is what happened to those who attempted to visit these coordinates in person. Multiple individuals reported traveling to the specified locations only to find nothing there. No structures, no geometric patterns, no evidence of the anomalies clearly visible in satellite imagery. The physical reality didn't match the documented imagery, suggesting that the coordinates existed in a state of documented non-existence. Some investigators reported more disturbing experiences. Those who persisted in searching for the coordinates' referenced locations described feeling disoriented, experiencing technology failures, and encountering what they described as spatial inconsistencies. Areas where their GPS readings didn't match their physical location, where compass directions seemed to shift, and where familiar landmarks appeared to move. The most disturbing discovery came from digital forensics experts who analyzed the metadata associated with the coordinates. The data revealed that many of the satellite images showing these anomalous locations had been captured during time periods when no satellites were scheduled to be photographing those areas. The images existed in mapping databases, but couldn't be traced to any official satellite operation. Consider the implications. Someone or something has created geographic locations that exist in visual documentation, but not in physical reality. They can manipulate satellite imagery to show structures that don't exist, or they can create physical structures that only exist temporarily, long enough to be photographed before disappearing. They operate with capabilities that suggest access to satellite networks and geographic databases that should be impossible to compromise. The coordinates revealed something fundamental about the relationship between digital documentation and physical reality. The two exist in states that don't always align. The mapping systems we trust to represent our world contain locations that exist only in data, spaces that can be visited digitally, but not physically, and anomalies that challenge our understanding of what constitutes real space. Law enforcement agencies reported that attempts to investigate these coordinates often led to jurisdiction disputes, with local authorities claiming the locations were federal responsibility, while federal agencies claimed they were local matters. The coordinates seemed to exist in administrative gaps that made official investigation impossible. What happens when you discover that the geographic systems you use to navigate reality contain locations that exist only in digital space? What other coordinates might point to places that exist in the gaps between physical reality and digital documentation? You search for these coordinates, but finding them means confronting the possibility that the world you think you know contains spaces that exist only in data. And the silence that follows is more terrifying than any location could be. Section 8. The Polybius Square. You believe that internet puzzles have solutions, that cryptographic challenges can be solved through conventional analysis, and that mysterious posts on forums can be decoded by skilled investigators. The Polybius Square phenomenon destroys these assumptions with a precision that suggests something far more disturbing than simple cryptographic games. This series of posts, appearing sporadically across various platforms, contains number sequences that follow the format of the ancient Polybius cipher, but resist every attempt at decryption while exhibiting patterns that suggest intelligence beyond human comprehension. The posts began appearing in 2017 across multiple platforms: Reddit, 4chan, Twitter, and obscure forums, always following the same format. Grids of numbers arranged in perfect squares, usually 5 by 5 or 6 by 6, with each number between 1 and 6. The Polybius cipher, invented by the ancient Greek historian, used a similar grid system to encode letters as coordinate pairs. The posts seem to be using this classical cryptographic method, but every attempt to decode them using standard techniques produced only gibberish. But here's where your understanding of cryptographic communication begins to fracture. The number sequences weren't random, but they weren't following any decryption method that human cryptographers could identify. Mathematical analysis revealed that the sequences contained patterns that suggested intentional design, statistical distributions that were too precise to be random, number relationships that implied underlying mathematical structures, and sequence lengths that corresponded to known cryptographic constants. The investigation revealed that the posts appeared simultaneously across multiple platforms from different IP addresses, suggesting coordination that would have required either sophisticated bot networks or numerous individuals working in perfect synchronization. The timing of the posts followed patterns that corresponded to astronomical events, mathematical constants, and historical anniversaries, but never in ways that provided clear meaning. What makes this phenomenon truly chilling is what happened to those who attempted to solve the puzzles. Cryptographers who spent extended periods analyzing the sequences reported experiencing what they described as mathematical vertigo, a disorientation that occurred when their pattern recognition systems encountered sequences that seemed meaningful but contained no decodable information. The human brain, confronted with patterns that followed mathematical rules while resisting interpretation, began to experience a form of cognitive breakdown. The most disturbing aspect was the post's apparent awareness of their investigators. After major cryptographic forums began discussing specific sequences, new posts would appear that seemed to reference the analysis methods being used. The puzzles were evolving in response to human attempts to solve them, demonstrating knowledge of the investigative techniques being employed and adapting to counter them. Consider the implications. Someone or something was creating cryptographic puzzles that could induce psychological distress in human investigators, while demonstrating awareness of their analysis methods. The posts operated across multiple platforms with coordination that suggested capabilities beyond normal human organization. They understood both classical cryptographic methods and human psychology well enough to create puzzles that would capture attention while resisting solution. The investigation revealed even more disturbing anomalies. Digital forensics experts who traced the IP addresses used to post the sequences found that they led to servers that had been compromised without their administrators' knowledge. The posts were being distributed through a network of unknowing participants whose systems were being used as relays for communications they couldn't detect. The posts eventually stopped appearing, but their effect on the cryptographic community was lasting. Several prominent researchers who had worked on the puzzles reported continued difficulty with pattern recognition, describing a persistent sense that they were missing obvious solutions to problems that should have been straightforward. The puzzles had caused some form of cognitive disruption that lingered long after the investigation ended. What happens when you discover that cryptographic puzzles can be designed to damage human cognitive function while operating through networks of compromised systems? What were those puzzles designed to test? And what did the results reveal about the human mind's vulnerabilities to mathematical manipulation? You search for the original posts, but finding them means risking the same cognitive disruption that claimed the original investigators, and the silence that follows is more terrifying than any solution could be. Section 9. The banana video. You assume that viral videos can be traced to their creators, that bizarre content on the internet has discoverable origins, and that collective investigation can identify the source of any uploaded media. The banana video phenomenon obliterates these assumptions with a precision that suggests something far more disturbing than simple anonymous content creation. This 10-minute video, featuring nothing but a person in a banana costume, performing inexplicable actions while haunting music plays, has defied every attempt at identification while exhibiting characteristics that suggest professional production capabilities beyond typical internet content. The video appeared simultaneously on multiple platforms in 2018, uploaded by accounts that had no prior posting history and were never used again. The content was simultaneously absurd and disturbing. A figure in a high-quality banana costume, performing repetitive actions that seemed to follow no logical pattern, while unsettling electronic music played in the background. The actions included precise movements that suggested choreography, interactions with objects that appeared and disappeared without explanation, and behaviors that seemed designed to induce specific psychological responses in viewers. But here's where your understanding of internet content creation begins to disintegrate. The video's production quality was far beyond typical amateur creation. The lighting was professional, the sound design was sophisticated, and the costume itself was clearly custom-made, with attention to detail that suggested significant investment. The video had been shot with multiple cameras, edited with professional software, and distributed through coordination that required technical expertise and resources. The investigation revealed that the video's metadata had been systematically scrubbed. No creation date, no camera information, no editing software signatures, and no geographic location data. This level of digital hygiene suggested knowledge of forensic investigation techniques and access to tools that could eliminate the digital fingerprints that normally allow content to be traced to its source. What makes this phenomenon truly chilling is what happened to those who watched the video for extended periods. Viewers reported experiencing what they described as narrative vertigo, a disorientation that occurred when their brains attempted to find meaning in the banana figure's actions. The video seemed designed to exploit human pattern recognition systems, creating content that appeared meaningful while containing no actual narrative structure. The most disturbing discovery came from audio analysis experts who found that the video's soundtrack contained frequencies that were precisely calibrated to induce anxiety and discomfort in viewers. The music wasn't randomly unsettling. It was mathematically designed to interact with human neurological processing in ways that suggested deep knowledge of psychoacoustic manipulation techniques. Consider the implications. Someone or something had created a video that required professional production capabilities, sophisticated technical knowledge, and understanding of human psychology, yet left no trace of its creation. The video existed in a state of documented non-existence, clearly visible and widely viewed, but untraceable to any identifiable source. The investigation revealed that the video had been uploaded to dozens of platforms simultaneously, suggesting either access to automated distribution systems or coordination by numerous individuals working in perfect synchronization. The accounts used for uploading had been created with false information, using email addresses that led to servers that didn't exist, and IP addresses that couldn't be traced to physical locations. Multiple viewers reported that the video seemed to change slightly each time they watched it. Actions that appeared different, music that seemed to shift, and details that didn't match their memories of previous viewings. When investigators attempted to verify these reports by comparing different versions, they found that the video files were identical, suggesting that the perceived changes were occurring in the viewers' minds, rather than in the content itself. What happens when you discover that internet content can be designed to induce psychological effects in viewers while maintaining perfect anonymity? What other videos might exist that exploit human neurological vulnerabilities while leaving no trace of their creators? You search for the banana video, but watching it means risking the same cognitive disruption that affected the original viewers, and the silence that follows is more terrifying than any explanation could be. Section 10. The Wyoming Incident. You believe that television broadcasts can be traced through regulatory systems, that emergency alert interruptions follow documented protocols, and that mysterious broadcasts can be investigated through conventional media analysis. The Wyoming incident obliterates these assumptions with a precision that suggests something far more disturbing than simple broadcast hijacking. This emergency alert system interruption, which allegedly occurred across Wyoming television stations in 1987, contained content so disturbing that it was supposedly classified by federal authorities and erased from all official records. The incident allegedly began during normal television programming, when the emergency alert system activated across multiple Wyoming stations simultaneously. Instead of the standard emergency message format, viewers were subjected to approximately 90 minutes of content that defied classification. The broadcast featured a combination of unsettling imagery, strange sounds, and what appeared to be psychological testing materials designed to induce specific responses in viewers. But here's where your understanding of broadcast regulation begins to fracture. If the incident occurred as described, it would have required capabilities that shouldn't have existed in 1987. The coordination necessary to override multiple stations simultaneously would have demanded access to emergency broadcast systems that were supposedly secure. The content itself demonstrated knowledge of psychological manipulation techniques that suggested expertise in areas that were classified at the time. The investigation revealed that no official records of the incident exist anywhere in the Federal Communications Commission archives, despite the fact that such a massive broadcast interruption would have triggered immediate federal investigation. Television stations that should have maintained logs of their programming reported missing documentation from precisely the period when the incident would have occurred. Emergency management officials claimed no knowledge of any unusual broadcast activity during that time. What makes this phenomenon truly chilling is what happened to those who allegedly witnessed the broadcast. Viewers who reported seeing the incident described experiencing lasting psychological effects, recurring nightmares, intrusive thoughts, and a persistent sense of unease that continued long after the broadcast ended. The content seemed designed to implant specific images and concepts into viewers' minds, creating a form of involuntary conditioning that persisted for years. The most disturbing aspect wasn't the content itself. It was the systematic erasure of evidence. If the incident occurred, someone possessed the capability to override multiple television stations simultaneously, broadcast psychological manipulation materials for 90 minutes, and then eliminate all official records of the event. The level of access and influence required for such an operation would have exceeded normal government capabilities. Consider the implications. Someone or something had demonstrated the ability to take control of public broadcast systems and conduct psychological experiments on unwitting viewers while maintaining perfect operational security. The incident, if real, represented a form of mass psychological manipulation that treated American citizens as laboratory subjects without their knowledge or consent. The investigation revealed even more disturbing anomalies. Researchers who attempted to gather evidence about the incident reported experiencing what they described as investigative interference. Sources who initially claimed to have witnessed the broadcast would later deny any knowledge of it, documents that seemed to exist would disappear before they could be examined, and government officials would become evasive when asked about emergency broadcast protocols from that era. Multiple independent researchers working on the incident reported similar experiences. Initial leads that seemed promising would dissolve under scrutiny, witnesses would become unreachable, and official channels would provide contradictory information that made verification impossible. The investigation itself seemed to be subject to active countermeasures designed to prevent discovery of the truth. What happens when you discover that public broadcast systems can be compromised for psychological experimentation, while all evidence of the operation is systematically erased? What other incidents might have occurred that have been similarly removed from the official record? You search for evidence of the Wyoming incident, but investigating it means entering a space where the boundaries between documented reality and systematic deception become impossible to distinguish, and the silence that follows is more terrifying than any broadcast could be. Section 11. The Arecibo Message. Response. You believe that scientific communications follow documented protocols, that radio astronomy operates within established procedures, and that mysterious signals from space can be analyzed through conventional means. The Arecibo Message. Response phenomenon. Destroys these assumptions with a precision that suggests something far more disturbing than simple radio interference. This alleged reply to humanity's first intentional message to extraterrestrial intelligence appeared exactly where it should have, containing information that shouldn't have been possible to obtain, and was subsequently erased from all official records. The original Arecibo message was transmitted in 1974 as humanity's first attempt to communicate with potential extraterrestrial intelligence. The message, sent toward the globular cluster, M13, contained basic information about human civilization, our solar system, and our biological structure. The transmission was a symbolic gesture. M13 is 25,000 light-years away, making any reply impossible within human lifetimes. But here's where your understanding of interstellar communication begins to fracture. In 2001, exactly 27 years after the original transmission, radio telescopes detected a signal that appeared to be a direct response to the Arecibo message. The signal originated from the expected direction, followed the same format as the original message, but contained information that revealed knowledge of human activities that shouldn't have been available to any external observer. The response message, when decoded, contained modifications to the original human data that were both subtle and terrifying. The population figures had been updated to reflect current Earth demographics with impossible accuracy. The description of human biology had been altered to include information about genetic modifications and medical procedures that weren't public knowledge. The solar system diagram had been modified to include details about asteroid mining operations and satellite networks that were classified at the time. What makes this phenomenon truly chilling is the signal's technical impossibility. The response arrived far too quickly to have traveled to M13 and back. The signal strength and coherence suggested a transmission source much closer to Earth, yet no terrestrial or near-Earth source could account for the signal's characteristics. The message demonstrated knowledge of human activities that would have required surveillance capabilities beyond any known technology. The investigation revealed that the response had been received by multiple radio astronomy facilities simultaneously, yet none of them reported it through official channels. The signal appeared in archived data from several observatories, but the astronomers who should have been monitoring those frequencies claimed no knowledge of receiving anything unusual. The data existed in computer systems, but not in human memory. Consider the implications. Someone or something had demonstrated the ability to monitor human civilization with precision that exceeded our own surveillance capabilities, access classified information about our activities, and transmit responses through radio frequencies that shouldn't have been available to external observers. The response suggested that humanity was under observation by intelligence with capabilities that defied our understanding of physics and communication. The investigation revealed even more disturbing anomalies. Astronomers who attempted to verify the response signal reported experiencing what they described as data amnesia. They would begin analyzing the signal, but would find themselves unable to remember what they had discovered. Computer systems would malfunction when attempting to process the response data, and backup copies would mysteriously become corrupted. Government agencies that should have been interested in potential extraterrestrial communication showed no curiosity about the response. When researchers attempted to report their findings, they were told that no such signal had been received and that their data must be the result of equipment malfunction. The official position was that the response didn't exist, despite its presence in multiple archive datasets. What happens when you discover that humanity's first message to the stars received a response that revealed we were already under observation? What other communications might have been received that have been similarly suppressed or forgotten? You search for evidence of the response signal, but finding it means confronting the possibility that our attempts to contact extraterrestrial intelligence have succeeded in ways that were never intended to be public knowledge, and the silence that follows is more terrifying than any message could be. Section 12. The Smiley Face Killers. You assume that serial killers operate according to established psychological profiles, that murder investigations follow documented procedures, and that patterns of connected crimes can be identified through conventional analysis. The smiley face killers phenomenon obliterates these assumptions with a precision that suggests something far more disturbing than simple serial murder. This alleged network of killers has been connected to dozens of deaths across multiple states, yet operates with coordination and methodology that defies every known model of criminal behavior. The pattern began emerging in the 1990s when two retired New York police detectives, Kevin Gannon and Anthony Duarte, noticed similarities between cases of young men found dead in bodies of water across the Midwest. The victims were typically college-aged, athletic, and had been drinking before their disappearance. Their deaths were officially ruled accidental drownings, but the detectives found evidence suggesting something far more sinister. But here's where your understanding of criminal investigation begins to disintegrate. The alleged killers operate with coordination that suggests capabilities beyond normal criminal organization. The deaths occur across multiple states, with timing that suggests communication and planning between perpetrators. The victims are selected according to criteria that indicate detailed surveillance and intelligence gathering. The crime scenes are manipulated to appear accidental while containing subtle signatures that suggest organized activity. The investigation revealed that many of the death scenes contained smiley face graffiti that hadn't been there before the victims' disappearances. The graffiti appeared in locations that required advanced planning to access, suggesting that the killers had prepared the scenes before the murders occurred. The symbols weren't random. They followed consistent patterns that indicated a shared methodology among multiple perpetrators. What makes this phenomenon truly chilling is the level of sophistication required to coordinate such an operation. The killers would need to identify suitable victims, conduct surveillance to learn their habits and vulnerabilities, coordinate timing across multiple locations, and manipulate crime scenes to ensure that deaths appeared accidental. This level of organization suggests resources and capabilities that exceed typical criminal networks. The most disturbing aspect was the official response to the investigation. Law enforcement agencies consistently dismissed the pattern as coincidence, despite statistical analysis that suggested the probability of so many similar deaths occurring randomly was virtually impossible. The FBI rejected the serial killer theory, maintaining that the deaths were unrelated accidents, despite evidence that suggested otherwise. Consider the implications. A coordinated network of killers has been operating across multiple states for decades, selecting victims according to specific criteria and manipulating crime scenes to avoid detection. They possess the organizational capabilities to coordinate activities across vast distances while maintaining perfect operational security. They understand law enforcement investigation techniques well enough to create crime scenes that will be dismissed as accidents. The investigation revealed that the killers demonstrated knowledge of police procedures, forensic techniques, and investigation protocols that suggested training in law enforcement methods. The crime scenes were designed to exploit gaps in investigative procedures, creating deaths that would be closed as accidents without thorough investigation. The killers understood the system well enough to operate within its blind spots. Multiple families of victims reported receiving anonymous communications after their loved ones' deaths, messages that contained information about the circumstances of death that hadn't been made public. The communications seemed designed to torment the families, while demonstrating that the deaths weren't accidents. The killers were taking psychological satisfaction in their ability to commit murder while maintaining official denial of their existence. What happens when you discover that coordinated networks of killers can operate across multiple states while maintaining perfect operational security? What other patterns of connected crimes might exist that have been similarly dismissed as coincidence? You search for evidence of the smiley face killers, but investigating them means entering a space where the boundaries between accident and murder become impossible to distinguish, and the silence that follows is more terrifying than any confession could be. Section 13. The Beale Ciphers. You believe that cryptographic puzzles can be solved through mathematical analysis, that historical mysteries contain discoverable truths, and that treasure stories can be verified through conventional investigation. The Beale ciphers phenomenon destroys these assumptions with a precision that suggests something far more disturbing than simple cryptographic challenges. These 3 ciphers, allegedly containing the location of a vast treasure buried in Virginia, have resisted every attempt at decryption while exhibiting characteristics that suggest they were designed to drive investigators to madness. The story began in 1885, when a pamphlet appeared describing 3 coded messages left by a mysterious figure named Thomas Beale. The pamphlet claimed that Beale had discovered gold and silver in Colorado, transported it to Virginia, and buried it before creating 3 ciphers that contained the location of the treasure, its contents, and the names of those who should receive it. One cipher had allegedly been solved, revealing an inventory of the treasure worth millions in today's currency. But here's where your understanding of cryptographic puzzles begins to fracture. The ciphers contain mathematical anomalies that suggest they were designed to resist solution while appearing solvable. The allegedly solved cipher uses the Declaration of Independence as a key, but the other 2 ciphers don't respond to any known text as a key. Statistical analysis reveals that the ciphers contain patterns that are too regular to be random, but too irregular to be decoded using conventional methods. The investigation revealed that the ciphers have consumed the lives of thousands of investigators over more than a century. Professional cryptographers, amateur code breakers, and computer scientists have applied every known decryption technique to the ciphers without success. The puzzles seem designed to provide just enough apparent pattern to maintain hope while never yielding actual solutions. What makes this phenomenon truly chilling is the psychological effect the ciphers have on those who attempt to solve them. Investigators report becoming obsessed with the puzzles, spending years analyzing number patterns, trying thousands of potential keys, and gradually losing touch with reality as they convince themselves that they're close to a breakthrough that never comes. The ciphers seem to exploit human pattern recognition systems in ways that create addictive psychological loops. The most disturbing aspect isn't the ciphers themselves. It's their apparent design to create obsessive behavior in investigators. The puzzles contain just enough apparent meaning to maintain engagement while never providing the satisfaction of solution. They seem to understand human psychology well enough to create problems that will consume lives without ever yielding results. Consider the implications. Someone created cryptographic puzzles that were designed not to be solved, but to trap human minds in obsessive loops. The ciphers operate as psychological weapons that can destroy investigators' ability to think clearly about other subjects. They represent a form of mental manipulation that treats human intelligence as a resource to be consumed rather than a problem to be solved. The investigation revealed that the historical Thomas Beale may never have existed. Records from the period contain no evidence of anyone matching his description, conducting the activities described in the pamphlet. The treasure story appears to be a complete fabrication, designed to motivate people to attempt solving the ciphers. The true purpose of the puzzles remains unknown. Multiple investigators who spent years working on the ciphers reported experiencing lasting cognitive effects, difficulty with other cryptographic problems, persistent obsession with number patterns, and an inability to accept that the puzzles might be unsolvable. The ciphers had caused some form of mental conditioning that persisted long after the investigation ended. What happens when you discover that cryptographic puzzles can be designed to trap human minds in obsessive loops while serving no apparent purpose beyond psychological manipulation? What other historical mysteries might exist that are designed to consume investigators rather than reward them? You search for solutions to the Beale ciphers, but working on them means risking the same cognitive trap that has claimed thousands of investigators over more than a century. And the silence that follows is more terrifying than any treasure could be. Section 14. The Max Headroom Incident. You believe that broadcast television operates within secure systems, that signal intrusions can be traced through technical analysis, and that mysterious broadcasts can be investigated through conventional means. The Max Headroom Incident obliterates these assumptions with a precision that suggests something far more disturbing than simple broadcast piracy. This television signal intrusion, which occurred on 2 Chicago television stations in 1987, demonstrated technical capabilities that shouldn't have been possible, while delivering content that seemed designed to induce specific psychological responses in viewers. The incident began during a Chicago Bears football game when the broadcast was suddenly interrupted by a figure wearing a Max Headroom mask. The intrusion lasted only 25 seconds on the first station, but the perpetrator returned later that evening during a Doctor Who episode on another station. The performance lasted 90 seconds and combined absurdist humor with disturbing imagery and sounds that seemed designed to create discomfort in viewers. But here's where your understanding of broadcast security begins to disintegrate. The technical requirements for such an intrusion were extraordinary. The perpetrator would have needed access to powerful transmitters, detailed knowledge of broadcast frequencies, and the ability to override multiple stations' signals simultaneously. The equipment required would have cost hundreds of thousands of dollars and required expertise that only broadcast engineers possessed. The investigation revealed that the signal intrusion demonstrated knowledge of broadcast technology that exceeded what most television stations' own engineers understood. The perpetrator managed to override both the audio and video signals with precision that suggested access to professional-grade equipment and intimate knowledge of the target station's technical specifications. The intrusion was executed with timing that indicated detailed surveillance of the station's programming schedules. What makes this phenomenon truly chilling is the content of the broadcast itself. The figure in the Max Headroom mask delivered a performance that seemed designed to exploit human psychological vulnerabilities. The combination of familiar imagery. The Max Headroom character was popular at the time, with disturbing sounds and movements created a form of cognitive dissonance that viewers found deeply unsettling. The performance included elements that seemed to reference specific psychological manipulation techniques, rapid movements designed to trigger stress responses, audio frequencies that created discomfort, and visual patterns that interfered with normal perception. The content wasn't random absurdism. It was carefully crafted to produce specific effects on viewers' mental states. Consider the implications. Someone possessed the technical capabilities to override multiple television stations' signals while demonstrating knowledge of psychological manipulation, techniques that suggested expertise in areas that were classified at the time. The broadcast represented a form of mass psychological experimentation that treated television viewers as unwitting subjects. The investigation revealed that the perpetrator had somehow obtained access to transmitter equipment that wasn't available to the general public. The signal strength and clarity required would have demanded access to industrial-grade broadcast equipment that was heavily regulated and monitored. The fact that such equipment was used without detection suggested either theft from major broadcast facilities or access to government-grade communication systems. Federal authorities launched a major investigation, but were never able to identify the perpetrator. The technical analysis revealed that the signal had been transmitted from a location that should have been easily traceable, yet no physical evidence was found. The perpetrator had managed to conduct a major broadcast intrusion while leaving no forensic traces that could lead to identification. Multiple viewers reported experiencing lasting effects from watching the broadcast, recurring nightmares, intrusive thoughts about the Max Headroom figure, and a persistent sense of unease when watching television. The content seemed designed to create psychological implants that would persist long after the broadcast ended. What happens when you discover that television broadcast systems can be compromised for psychological experimentation while the perpetrators maintain perfect operational security? What other broadcasts might have been conducted that were designed to influence viewer behavior in ways that weren't immediately apparent? You search for footage of the Max Headroom incident, but watching it means exposing yourself to content that was designed to manipulate human psychology, and the silence that follows is more terrifying than any explanation could be. Section 15, the Antikythera mechanism. You believe that ancient technologies can be understood through historical analysis, that archaeological discoveries fit within established timelines of human development, and that mysterious artifacts can be explained through conventional investigation. The Antikythera mechanism obliterates these assumptions with a precision that suggests something far more disturbing than simple advanced ancient engineering. This device, discovered in a shipwreck off the Greek coast, demonstrates technological capabilities that shouldn't have been possible for another 1,000 years, while serving purposes that remain fundamentally incomprehensible. The mechanism was discovered in 1901 among the artifacts of a Roman shipwreck, dating to approximately 100 BCE. For decades, it remained a curiosity, a corroded bronze device that appeared to contain gear systems far more complex than anything known from the ancient world. Early investigators assumed it was a simple astrolabe or navigation instrument, but X-ray analysis revealed internal complexity that defied every assumption about ancient technological capabilities. But here's where your understanding of technological development begins to fracture. The mechanism contains gear systems that demonstrate knowledge of precision engineering that didn't reappear in human technology until the 14th century. The device includes differential gears, epicyclic gearing, and mechanical computation systems that required mathematical understanding that supposedly didn't exist in the ancient world. The investigation revealed that the mechanism was designed to calculate astronomical positions with accuracy that exceeded what ancient astronomers should have been able to achieve. The device could predict eclipses, track planetary movements, and calculate celestial events with precision that suggested access to observational data spanning centuries. The computational complexity required to program such calculations would have demanded mathematical knowledge that historians claim didn't exist until the Renaissance. What makes this phenomenon truly chilling is the device's apparent awareness of astronomical phenomena that weren't officially discovered until the modern era. The mechanism includes calculations for planetary movements that account for orbital irregularities that weren't documented by ancient astronomers. The device seems to incorporate knowledge of celestial mechanics that wouldn't be formally understood until the development of modern physics. The most disturbing aspect isn't the mechanism's complexity. It's the implications for our understanding of ancient civilization. If the device represents normal ancient technology, then our entire conception of historical technological development is fundamentally flawed. If it represents anomalous ancient technology, then someone in the ancient world possessed capabilities that exceeded what we believed possible. Consider the implications. Ancient engineers created a device that demonstrated knowledge of precision manufacturing, complex mathematics, and astronomical observation that exceeded what historians claim was possible for their time period. The mechanism suggests that ancient civilization possessed technological capabilities that have been systematically underestimated or deliberately concealed. The investigation revealed that the mechanism's construction required access to materials and manufacturing techniques that supposedly didn't exist in the ancient world. The bronze alloys used in the gears demonstrate metallurgical knowledge that wasn't documented until much later periods. The precision of the gear cutting would have required tools and techniques that left no other archaeological evidence. Multiple attempts to reconstruct the mechanism using ancient techniques have failed to achieve the precision demonstrated by the original device. Modern engineers, using contemporary tools and materials, have struggled to replicate the mechanism's functionality. The device seems to represent a level of technological sophistication that challenges our understanding of what was possible in the ancient world. What happens when you discover that ancient civilizations possess technological capabilities that exceed our historical understanding? What other artifacts might exist that demonstrate knowledge and abilities that have been systematically overlooked or suppressed? You search for more information about the Antikythera mechanism, But studying it means confronting the possibility that our entire understanding of human technological development is fundamentally flawed, and the silence that follows is more terrifying than any discovery could be. Section 16. The Voynich Manuscript. You believe that ancient texts can be decoded through linguistic analysis, that historical documents contain discoverable meanings, and that mysterious manuscripts can be understood through conventional scholarly investigation. The Voynich Manuscript destroys these assumptions with a precision that suggests something far more disturbing than simple unknown language. This 15th century document, written in an undecipherable script and illustrated with impossible botanical and astronomical diagrams, has resisted every attempt at translation while exhibiting characteristics that suggest it was designed to drive scholars to madness. The manuscript was discovered in 1912 by book dealer Wilfred Voynich in a collection of ancient texts. The document contains approximately 240 pages of text written in an unknown script, accompanied by illustrations that appear to depict plants, astronomical diagrams, and human figures in ways that don't correspond to any known botanical or astronomical knowledge. The text flows naturally, with consistent character usage and apparent grammatical structures, suggesting it represents a real language, rather than random symbols. But here's where your understanding of historical linguistics begins to fracture. The manuscript's script contains statistical properties that suggest it represents actual language while refusing to yield to any decryption method. The character frequency distributions, word length patterns, and repetitive structures follow linguistic rules that indicate meaning, but the meaning itself remains completely inaccessible to human understanding. The investigation revealed that the manuscript has consumed the careers of countless scholars over more than a century. Professional linguists, cryptographers, and computer scientists have applied every known decryption technique to the text without success. The manuscript seems designed to provide just enough apparent linguistic structure to maintain hope, while never yielding actual translation. What makes this phenomenon truly chilling is the manuscript's biological and astronomical illustrations. The plants depicted in the botanical sections don't correspond to any known species, yet they're drawn with biological accuracy that suggests detailed observation of living specimens. The astronomical diagrams contain celestial configurations that don't match any known astronomical phenomena, yet they're presented with mathematical precision that suggests genuine scientific knowledge. The most disturbing aspect isn't the manuscript's indecipherability. It's the psychological effect it has on those who attempt to study it. Scholars report becoming obsessed with the text, spending years analyzing character patterns, trying thousands of potential translation keys, and gradually losing touch with their other research as they convince themselves that they're close to a breakthrough that never comes. Consider the implications. Someone created a manuscript that was designed not to be understood, but to trap human minds in obsessive loops. The text operates as a psychological weapon that can destroy scholars' ability to think clearly about other subjects. It represents a form of mental manipulation that treats human intelligence as a resource to be consumed rather than a problem to be solved. The investigation revealed that the manuscript's creation would have required access to knowledge that supposedly didn't exist in the 15th century. The biological illustrations demonstrate understanding of plant anatomy that wasn't documented until much later periods. The astronomical diagrams contain mathematical concepts that weren't formally developed until the Renaissance. Multiple scholars who spent years working on the manuscript reported experiencing lasting cognitive effects, difficulty with other linguistic problems, persistent obsession with symbol patterns, and an inability to accept that the text might be unsolvable. The manuscript had caused some form of mental conditioning that persisted long after the investigation ended. Carbon dating and other scientific analysis confirmed that the manuscript was created in the 15th century, yet the knowledge it contains seems to exceed what was available to scholars of that period. The text exists in a state of documented impossibility, clearly medieval in origin, but containing information that shouldn't have been accessible to medieval scholars. What happens when you discover that historical documents can be designed to trap human minds in obsessive loops while serving no apparent purpose beyond psychological manipulation? What other ancient texts might exist that are designed to consume scholars rather than enlighten them? You search for translations of the Voynich manuscript, but studying it means risking the same cognitive trap that has claimed hundreds of scholars over more than a century, and the silence that follows is more terrifying than any meaning could be. Section 17. The Bloop. You assume that ocean sounds can be identified through acoustic analysis, that mysterious underwater phenomena can be investigated through conventional marine science, and that unknown sounds from the deep can be explained through established biological or geological processes. The bloop phenomenon obliterates these assumptions with a precision that suggests something far more disturbing than simple marine acoustics. This ultra-low frequency sound, detected by underwater monitoring systems in 1997, demonstrated characteristics that defied every known model of oceanic sound production, while originating from depths that should have been lifeless. The sound was detected by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's Autonomous Hydrophone Array, a system of underwater microphones designed to monitor ocean sounds for research purposes. The bloop was detected simultaneously by sensors separated by thousands of miles, indicating a sound source of extraordinary magnitude. The acoustic characteristics suggested something biological, but the size implied by the sound's intensity would have required a creature larger than any known biological entity. But here's where your understanding of marine acoustics begins to disintegrate. The sound exhibited properties that shouldn't have been possible for any known biological or geological process. The frequency profile suggested organic origin, but the amplitude required a sound source that would have been visible from space. The sound's duration and repetition patterns indicated intentional production rather than random natural phenomena. The investigation revealed that the bloop originated from a location in the South Pacific, known as Point Nemo, the most remote location on Earth's surface. This area, officially designated as the oceanic pole of inaccessibility, lies farther from any landmass than any other point on the planet. The region is considered biologically dead, too far from any coast to support significant marine life. Yet something there was producing sounds that could be detected across entire ocean basins. What makes this phenomenon truly chilling is the sound's apparent response to human monitoring. After the initial detection, hydrophone arrays were repositioned to better monitor the source location. Subsequent sounds from the same area exhibited characteristics that suggested awareness of the monitoring systems, frequency shifts that avoided the most sensitive detection ranges, timing patterns that suggested deliberate evasion of scheduled monitoring periods. The most disturbing aspect wasn't the sound itself. It was the systematic suppression of information about its investigation. NOAA initially released the sound recording to the public, but subsequent analysis results were classified. Research proposals to investigate the source location were denied funding. Scientists who attempted to study the phenomenon reported experiencing bureaucratic obstacles that prevented them from conducting proper investigation. Consider the implications. Something in the most remote location on Earth was producing sounds that could be detected across entire ocean basins, while demonstrating apparent awareness of human monitoring systems. The phenomenon suggested the presence of something that understood human technology well enough to evade detection while possessing capabilities that exceeded any known biological entity. The investigation revealed that the source location had been the site of other unexplained phenomena. Satellite imagery showed unusual water disturbances in the area that didn't correspond to known oceanographic processes. Ships that passed through the region reported electromagnetic anomalies that interfered with navigation systems. The area seemed to be a nexus for phenomena that challenged our understanding of marine environments. Official explanations for the bloop claimed it was caused by ice movement or geological activity, but these explanations couldn't account for the sound's biological characteristics or its apparent responsiveness to human monitoring. The explanations seemed designed to discourage further investigation rather than provide genuine scientific understanding. Multiple researchers who attempted to study the phenomenon reported experiencing what they described as investigative interference, funding applications that were rejected without explanation, research proposals that disappeared from administrative systems, and academic pressure to pursue other topics. The investigation itself seemed to be subject to active countermeasures designed to prevent discovery of the truth. What happens when you discover that the most remote locations on Earth might harbor phenomena that exceed our understanding of biological possibility? What other sounds from the deep might exist that have been similarly suppressed or explained away? You search for more information about the bloop, but investigating it means entering a space where marine science becomes indistinguishable from systematic deception, and the silence that follows is more terrifying than any sound could be. Section 18. The Hoya Forest Phenomena. You believe that geographical locations can be investigated through conventional scientific methods, that mysterious phenomena can be explained through established physics, and that reported anomalies can be verified through empirical observation. The Hoya Forest phenomena obliterate these assumptions with a precision that suggests something far more disturbing than simple environmental anomalies. This Romanian forest, known locally as the Bermuda Triangle of Transylvania, demonstrates characteristics that defy every known model of physical reality while affecting human consciousness in ways that suggest deliberate manipulation. The forest, located near Cluj-Napoca, Romania, has been the site of documented paranormal activity for over a century. The phenomena include electronic equipment malfunctions, unexplained lights, geometric patterns of dead vegetation, and psychological effects on visitors that range from disorientation to complete memory loss. The forest contains a circular clearing where nothing grows, despite soil analysis revealing no chemical or biological reason for the barren area. But here's where your understanding of environmental science begins to fracture. The forest exhibits properties that shouldn't be possible according to established physics. Electronic devices fail in patterns that suggest electromagnetic interference, yet no source of such interference can be detected. Visitors report experiencing time distortion, entering the forest for what feels like minutes, only to discover that hours have passed. The phenomena seem to operate according to rules that exist outside normal physical reality. The investigation revealed that the forest affects human consciousness in ways that suggest systematic psychological manipulation. Visitors report experiencing altered states of consciousness, vivid hallucinations, and persistent memories of events that didn't occur. The effects aren't random. They follow patterns that suggest the forest is conducting experiments on human consciousness using techniques that exceed our understanding of neurological manipulation. What makes this phenomenon truly chilling is the forest's apparent awareness of its investigators. Research teams that enter the forest report experiencing phenomena that seem designed to discourage further investigation. Electronic equipment fails in ways that prevent documentation of the anomalies. Researchers experience psychological effects that make them reluctant to return. The forest seems to understand human psychology well enough to create experiences that will terminate investigation. The most disturbing aspect isn't the phenomena themselves. It's their systematic targeting of human consciousness. The forest doesn't just produce random anomalies. It creates experiences that interact with human neurological processing in ways that suggest detailed knowledge of psychological manipulation techniques. The phenomena seem designed to alter human consciousness rather than simply frighten or confuse visitors. Consider the implications. A geographical location exists that can manipulate human consciousness, interfere with electronic equipment, and create physical anomalies that defy established physics. The forest operates as a laboratory for consciousness research that treats human visitors as experimental subjects without their knowledge or consent. The investigation revealed that the forest has been the site of similar phenomena for centuries. Historical records describe unexplained events in the area dating back to medieval times. The consistency of the reports across different time periods suggests that the phenomena aren't modern hoaxes or misidentifications, but represent genuine anomalies that have persisted for generations. Government agencies that should have been interested in investigating the phenomena show no official curiosity about the forest. When researchers attempt to conduct formal studies, they encounter bureaucratic obstacles that prevent them from obtaining proper research permits. The official position is that the forest contains no unusual phenomena, despite extensive documentation of anomalies. Multiple research teams that attempted to study the forest reported experiencing lasting effects from their investigations: persistent disorientation, recurring nightmares, and an inability to remember specific details about their experiences. The forest seemed to cause some form of consciousness modification that persisted long after the visits ended. What happens when you discover that geographical locations can systematically manipulate human consciousness while demonstrating capabilities that exceed our understanding of physics? What other locations might exist that conduct similar experiments on human visitors? You search for more information about Hoya Forest, but investigating it means risking the same consciousness modification that has affected hundreds of researchers, and the silence that follows is more terrifying than any phenomenon could be. Section 19. The Toynbee Tiles. You assume that urban messages can be traced to their creators, that mysterious installations can be investigated through conventional means, and that anonymous communications can be understood through established investigative techniques. The Toynbee Tiles phenomenon destroys these assumptions with a precision that suggests something far more disturbing than simple guerrilla art. These hundreds of cryptic messages embedded in asphalt streets across major American cities, have appeared continuously for decades, while their creator maintains perfect anonymity and demonstrates capabilities that exceed normal urban installation methods. The tiles began appearing in major American cities in the 1980s, embedded directly into asphalt streets, with a precision that suggested professional installation capabilities. The messages typically read, Toynbee idea in movie 2001, resurrect dead on planet Jupiter, along with additional text that seemed to reference media manipulation, government conspiracies, and cosmic resurrection themes. The tiles were installed with such precision that they appeared to be part of the original street construction. But here's where your understanding of urban installation begins to fracture. The tiles demonstrate technical capabilities that shouldn't have been possible for individual operators. The installation process would have required access to professional road construction equipment, detailed knowledge of street maintenance schedules, and the ability to work in high-traffic areas without detection. The tiles weren't simply placed on streets. They were embedded into the asphalt with techniques that matched professional road work. The investigation revealed that the tiles appeared simultaneously in multiple cities, suggesting coordination that would have required either a network of operators or individual capabilities that exceeded normal human logistics. The tiles appeared in locations that would have required advanced planning, street permits, and access to construction equipment that wasn't available to private individuals. What makes this phenomenon truly chilling is the tiles' apparent response to investigation attempts. When researchers began documenting the tiles' locations and messages, new tiles appeared that seemed to reference the documentation efforts. The messages evolved to include warnings about media manipulation and government surveillance that suggested awareness of the investigation activities. The most disturbing aspect wasn't the tiles themselves. It was their creators' demonstrated ability to operate in major American cities for decades without leaving any trace of identity. The installation process would have required numerous opportunities for identification, street cameras, witness observations, permit applications, and equipment rentals, yet no evidence of the creator's identity has ever been discovered. Government agencies that should have been interested in investigating unauthorized street installations showed no curiosity about the tiles. When researchers attempted to document the phenomena, they encountered obstacles that prevented comprehensive investigation. Street maintenance records that should have documented that the installation process were missing or classified. Multiple investigators who attempted to trace the tiles' origins reported experiencing systematic interference with their research, documentation that disappeared from archives, sources who refused to provide information, and academic pressure to abandon their investigations. The tiles seemed to be protected by mechanisms that prevented discovery of their true origins. What happens when you discover that anonymous communications can be installed in major cities for decades while demonstrating capabilities that exceed normal human logistics? What other messages might exist that have been similarly protected from investigation? You search for more information about the Toynbee tiles, but investigating them means entering a space where urban art becomes indistinguishable from systematic communication operations, and the silence that follows is more terrifying than any message could be. Section 20. The Deep Web Numbers Stations. You assume that digital communications can be traced to their sources, that internet traffic can be monitored through conventional cybersecurity methods, and that encrypted transmissions can be understood through established cryptographic analysis. The Deep Web Numbers Stations phenomenon obliterates these assumptions with a precision that suggests something far more disturbing than simple encrypted communication. These continuous data streams, broadcasting through hidden network protocols for decades, demonstrate characteristics that defy every known model of digital communication while transmitting information that appears to exist outside normal data structures. The phenomenon was first documented by network security researchers in the late 1990s, who discovered continuous data transmissions occurring through network protocols that shouldn't have been able to support such communications. The transmissions consisted of seemingly random number sequences transmitted at precise intervals through network pathways that couldn't be traced to any identifiable source. The data streams operated continuously, consuming bandwidth that should have been detectable by network monitoring systems. But here's where your understanding of digital communication begins to fracture. The transmissions demonstrate properties that shouldn't be possible according to established networking protocols. The data streams operate through network pathways that don't appear in routing tables, suggesting communication methods that exist outside normal internet infrastructure. The transmissions maintain perfect synchronization across multiple network nodes, despite operating through systems that should have introduced latency variations. The investigation revealed that the number sequences follow mathematical patterns that suggest systematic encoding, but the patterns don't correspond to any known cryptographic methods. The sequences demonstrate statistical properties that indicate meaningful information, yet no conventional decryption method can extract readable content. The transmissions seem to use encoding techniques that exist outside established cryptographic knowledge. What makes this phenomenon truly chilling is the transmission's apparent awareness of monitoring attempts. When researchers began documenting the data streams, the transmission patterns changed in ways that suggested knowledge of the monitoring activities. The sequences evolved to include elements that seemed designed to confuse analysis while maintaining their core mathematical properties. The most disturbing aspect isn't the transmissions themselves. It's their demonstrated ability to operate through internet infrastructure for decades without leaving any trace in network logs or routing records. The data streams consume bandwidth and processing resources that should be detectable by network monitoring systems, yet they operate invisibly through systems that should track all digital communications. Consider the implications. Something has been transmitting continuous data streams through internet infrastructure for decades while using communication methods that exceed our understanding of network protocols. The transmissions demonstrate capabilities that suggest either advanced technology or manipulation of digital reality itself. The investigation revealed that the transmission sources seem to be distributed across network infrastructure in ways that shouldn't be possible. The data streams originate from network nodes that don't appear in any registry, suggesting either hardware that exists outside normal inventory systems or virtual systems that operate through unknown methods. Government cybersecurity agencies that should have been interested in investigating unauthorized network transmissions show no official awareness of the phenomenon. When researchers attempt to document the data streams, they encounter technical obstacles that prevent comprehensive analysis. Network monitoring tools that should detect the transmissions report no unusual activity. Multiple researchers who attempted to trace the transmissions reported experiencing systematic interference with their investigations. Network access that was revoked without explanation. Research data that disappeared from secure systems, and academic pressure to abandon their studies. The transmissions seemed to be protected by mechanisms that prevented discovery of their true nature. What happens when you discover that digital communications can operate through internet infrastructure while demonstrating capabilities that exceed our understanding of network protocols. What other data streams might exist that have been similarly hidden from detection? You search for more information about the deep web numbers stations, but investigating them means entering a space where network security becomes indistinguishable from systematic deception, and the silence that follows is more terrifying than any transmission could be.